Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our annual Student Study Act webinar. My name is Danica Saunders. I am the event coordinator for SACAP, and I will be your host this morning. Right, joining us this morning, we have a lineup of speakers all ready to share their knowledge on how to get through your exam period with confidence. First up, we have Bianca Fourie, who holds a B.Psych Honours degree, a PGCE qualification, and is currently pursuing a master's degree in positive psychology. She is a passionate academic and currently a lecturer and also an educator at SACAP's Johannesburg campus. She has worked in education for approximately 8 years, and she is of opinion that providing a supportive learning environment to students enables them to ultimately flourish. Next in line, we have Ziyanda Khumalo, who is an academic student advisor at the SACAP Johannesburg campus. She is an individual who is passionate about learning and personal development. Ziyanda is also an inspirational speaker who loves engaging with youth and empowering these age groups. And then finally, we have Elizabeth Lucas. She is a program coordinator for the Faculty of Social Work and Community Development at SACAP's Johannesburg campus. She oversees the Bachelor of Social Work and Master's Social Science programs. She has an honors degree in social work, a master's degree in healthcare and social work, and she is currently a PhD candidate, all from the University of Pretoria. Elizabeth has worked in the fields of clinical, counseling, and child and family protective services for a number of years. She is also a trauma counselor. Elizabeth teaches, supervises, and coordinates. Without any further ado, I will now hand over to Bianca. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Danica, and welcome to everyone joining us today. Thank you for taking the time out of your Saturday morning, and I am hopeful that this will provide you with some insightful information on how to tackle your exams. All right, so I will be talking about the approach on how to approach your exams holistically, and that there is no one size fits all approach, and then how to have a healthy relationship with your exam content. So, firstly, we need to understand that we are diverse as students, and that we learn differently. We each have unique learning styles and preferences in terms of our environments that we learn in. So we need to tailor our exam preparation methods to our individual needs in order to succeed. So first up, we have our visual learners. And visual learners learn best through visual aids, diagrams, charts. You can utilize your sticky notes here. You can use mind maps and flashcards. Then we have auditory learners who learn best through listening and verbal explanations. They like to engage in group discussions, record lectures, and use these audio resources. Auditory learners also learn best through environments that are not too quiet. Right, then we have kinesthetic learners, and there's always an assumption that kinesthetic learners are those learners who learn best through standing up and doing big movements while they learn, and it's not necessarily that. It's learners who need regular break intervals through learning. They also learn best through hands-on activities and movement. And we need to incorporate physical activity when we are studying. For example, walking around the room while we are studying, and like I said, taking the necessary breaks in terms of intervals. And we'll go into more detail regarding a technique that works for these learners quite well. Then it's also important to look at our study environments when we are studying. Some students prefer a quiet library, while other students thrive in coffee shops or with background music. Some students actually find it quite distracting to work in environments that are too quiet. So we need to understand that as well. I think in history it was said to students that you need a quiet environment. There should be no distractions, but it has been found through research that some students find the quietness actually distracted. So you need to do what works for you. And this can actually, yes, then like it says here, the ideal study environment can enhance your focus and productivity. And yeah, in the end, embracing the diversity and recognizing and valuing the diverse learning styles can actually foster the inclusivity and effective exam preparation for yourself. I just want to stand still for one moment because we've only mentioned 4 types of students, and there are actually 8. I'm not going to go into detail about the other 4s, but we have our logical learners, those who are very analytical, they want to solve problems. We have social learners, those who want to engage with others while learning. We have solo learners, those who want to learn individually by themselves. And then we have natural learners who prefer to learn and study in nature. So you need to go and identify which type of learner you are and then which environment suits you best. All right, moving on. Okay, so this is just a nice visual representation of the 3 main types of learners. And then important to remember that they overlap. So it's not to say that you are only one type of learner and that's it. You can be an auditory learner with some kinesthetic traits as well. You could be a visual learner with some auditory and kinesthetic traits. So it's quite complex. It's not to say that you are only a visual learner and that's it, and that is the type of environment that you are going to thrive in. So that's just a visual representation. Then I think this ties in nicely with that what I said just now. The no one size fits all approach is, I think, in terms of our schools and colleges and universities, we are moving towards an emphasis on self growth and self efficacy, suggesting that our personal attributes are just as significant as our academic accomplishments. Whereas in the past, there was a lot of focus on only accomplishing academic success, whereas now we want to function holistically as students, and yeah, we want to make sure that we have whole functioning students who can function in social environments, who can function on their own independently as well as academically and on the sports field. So it's important to note that as well, that you are not only successful when you are academically inclined. Right, so how can I enhance my self-efficacy? First, it's very important to identify your own personal strengths, those things that make you feel good about yourself, not the things that people tell you you are good at. All right, so this can be done through self reflection. All right, you can ask family and friends what they think you are good at, but it's important to reflect on that and ask yourself, do you think you are also good at this? And then identifying your own personal values, those non negotiables, those things that you feel you hold true and dear in your heart. Our culture also influenced this, our ethnicity also influenced this. And these things are going to be challenged throughout your school career and throughout your college years and university years. And this is important to then understand what are my personal values, so that if they are challenged, that you understand that these are the things that you value and they cannot be changed. Make sure to envision your future beyond school, so that self-awareness can guide your decisions about your course selections, majors in college or university, and life after school. And we are influenced by many factors, as is the way we study, and we differ in this aspect as well. Okay. Right, so how can we create a healthy relationship with exam content? This is very practical. So just a few tips. Our visual learners can use color-coded notes and highlighters to organize information. You can create mind maps or diagrams to visually represent certain contexts. Our kinesthetic learners take regular breaks during study sessions to engage in physical activities, use flashcards or interactive study tools to actively participate in the learning process. Those who are reading and writing learners summarize the material in your own words, create flashcards, or write down key points to reinforce learning. And then a strategy for all learning styles is to make sure that you break down the material into smaller, manageable chunks. Use mnemonic devices or acronyms to remember key information. Right, and then time management is very, very important in terms of creating a healthy relationship with exam content. Planning your study schedule. So the minute you know that you are going to write exams or you have assignments coming up, create a study schedule that outlines specific time slots for each subject or topic. The thing that works the best is that you have to have continuous contact with the subject matter. That means that the moment you get home, you need to engage with the content, that day's content. So make sure that you prioritize time for each subject in a day, even if it's just 10 minutes to review the content that's been discussed in class. Make sure to prioritize the difficult or challenging subjects when you are most alert and focused. So some people are more alert and focused at the start of the day, which is in the morning, or perhaps some people are night owls and they prefer to study at night. So you choose when your time suits you best and when you are most focused. And challenging or difficult subjects are going to be up to you. Some people find literacy more challenging than the mathematical subject. So you need to decide which subjects are more challenging for you. And like I said, break down the larger chunks into the larger information into smaller, manageable chunks. This can be done through summarizing or mind maps, which will, in the end, discourage you from procrastination, which we will also talk about. Okay, make sure that you also make time for breaks and recreational activities and rest. Schedule short breaks between such study sessions to give your brain time to rest and also recharge and to process the information that you've put in. Make sure that you use these breaks to not necessarily engage in activities that are overstimulating. So perhaps taking a walk in nature or just resting is also a good way to just relax and process information. When you are busy with exam time, it's very important to make sure to take the time to sleep well. I know when it's time to study, we tend to go to bed late because we are studying or wake up early, but that actually just has a negative effect on the brain and its capacity to memorize information. And then there's just a quote there that says, time management is key to success. It's not about having time, it's about making time. And then it's the bad news is time flies. The good news is you're the pilot. Gain focus and time management. Studies demand for more self-management. So it's more about managing yourself, and in that, then managing your time. Students are expected to spend more time on learning activities outside the classroom, and assignments often require a high level of decision making and evaluation of information. Matric level learning also demands at least 2 hours of outside learning for every 1 hour of study. So that's what I said. If you are busy with subjects in school, you have to make time in the afternoon to go through and revise what you've learned during the day. Procrastination is very real. It happens, and I'll speak about it just now in a bit more detail. But procrastination, in essence, is the act of delaying tasks that need to be completed. Minor procrastination is not necessarily a major concern. It does happen, we all do it, but it's when it becomes a serious problem is when it's a chronic habit, because then numerous tasks need to be completed with little time, or when the task being avoided is of great importance. So there are a few reasons why we procrastinate. So often there's a lack of energy, which can result from discomfort, illness, and if it continuously causes procrastination, it should be addressed. And the tip I can give here is to communicate. Communicate to your teachers, to your lecturers, if you feel that you're being overwhelmed because of issues that are beyond your control. Because if your teachers or your lecturers don't know, they cannot help you. The second thing is a lack of focus. This can be due to mental fatigue, being disorganized, or allowing oneself to be distracted. It doesn't mean you are lazy, it just means that you are not necessarily focused, or you are not necessarily interested in what needs to be done. The other thing that is quite prominent these days is the fear of failure. While not always conscious about this, this can lead a person to avoid tasks. They fear they cannot do it well or at all, and this is often related to anxiety. So I think what is important in terms of procrastination, if you see that you're struggling to get a task done, is to ask yourself, what is the reason behind the procrastination? And then first tackle that underlying reason, and then to actually just start with it. Then you will see it is not as big of a deal as you thought it were. And if it needs further and more serious attention, to speak to someone about that. Right. Okay, so the effects of procrastination, obviously we know loss of time, loss of goals, and sometimes it can lead to the loss of self-esteem, feeling that you cannot do it, you cannot complete the task. So there's a feeling of you failed the certain task, increased stress and anxiety, and it can lead to using time in ways that do not accomplish what needs to be done. So often in procrastination, we would rather clean our rooms than actually get the task done. Missing out on achieving goals and developing a low opinion of oneself and experiencing stress and anxiety. And this last one is the important one. When it comes to that point, I would say it's important to communicate, speak to someone you trust, speak to a teacher or a lecturer, and sort it out, because then it's no longer just procrastinating for the sake of it. I think there's then a deeper underlying issue. Right, so strategies to manage procrastination, making sure you are organized, putting aside distraction, especially social media, cell phones, YouTube, things like that, but still allowing yourself time for those interactions on social media. But yes, giving yourself time to engage in those things, but yes, making sure that you do get to what you need, what needs to be done. Rewarding oneself for completing tasks. I always say, don't reward yourself with food necessarily. We are not dogs, but yeah, making sure it's a reward that actually is meaningful. And then being accountable to someone else about your tasks, someone that actually can hold you accountable. And then it's important to accurately predict how long a task will take and set aside the required time for it. Yes, I think that sometimes we are not necessarily realistic about how long a task will take, and that also leads us to procrastinate. Okay. So, in terms of prioritizing a task, we prioritize based on importance. We need to set realistic deadlines and also be flexible when unexpected issues arise, because life does happen. So make sure you set aside enough time, not starting with a task the day before. It is important to also understand what it takes to plan and complete certain tasks, and the skills and resources that are needed. And also make sure that you create an environment that reduces interruptions, where there's an understanding of your personal rhythms and cycles, so that those people around you also respect that. And then there are techniques to manage time and tasks. There's a daily top three approach, where you identify the three most important tasks to be completed each day. The Pomodoro technique is developed by Francesco Cirillo, where he used a timer to set work intervals followed by short breaks. So it's actually interesting. Pomodoro means tomato in Italian. So he actually invented this technique by using his timer that looked like a tomato. And they say the best used, or the best way to use this, is to set intervals of 40 to 45 minutes where you work, and then a 15-minute break. So they say that's the best way to use this. And then eat the frog method, where you tackle the biggest, most unpleasant task first, and then it makes everything else easier. That's like eating your vegetables first and leaving the best for last. And then interleaving is mixing up the content that is being studied and the strategy of spacing, which involves studying over a period of days with breaks in between. And it's just important to see which one fits your personality, your study way of studying, and your way of life as well. That is going to be up to you. Right. And then it's very important to take care of your physical and mental health. Please make yourself a priority. Yes, studying is important, but like I said, we are moving towards a system where we also take the holistic approach. We look at the individual as a whole and not only academic success. Make sure to exercise, maintain mental well being in terms of speaking up when you feel overwhelmed. Yes, regular physical exercise does help reduce stress. It improves concentration and it boosts energy. And I think Elizabeth will speak a bit more about how to do that. Okay, moving on. Okay, so we all know what a balanced diet looks like. It's not to say you need to cut out all sugar now and go on a physical diet. That's not what we are promoting. We are just saying be more conscious of eating foods that does improve concentration when you are going through times of exam, or when you are a bit more or in a period where there are assignments, or where you feel a bit more stressed. And then a study has actually been done where they have gone through research to show what are the best beverages for studying. Now, we all know everybody grabs, or most people grab a Monster when they want to study because it gives energy, but that's actually part of the worst beverages for studying. The best beverages are soda water, and tea. Coffee also is included here, but in moderate forms. So they say coffee is best when consumed 90 minutes after being awake, and then limited. So not necessarily being taken at night at all. It can improve concentration, but you're in moderate intake. The worst beverages for studying, right at the top, is energy drinks. It has been associated with increased risk for cardiovascular and neurological issues. The ingredients used in it has also been linked with adverse effects, other side effects as well. Then soda and juices, the sugar content in it is so high that it can lead to blood sugar crashes as well, which leads to decreased concentration. So ultimately, water and tea keeps you best hydrated, and we know that if you're dehydrated, your brain can actually not concentrate, so it affects your cognition and attention. Okay. Right, sleep is very important, like I said earlier. Try to get enough sleep because it's essential for cognitive function. That is where memory consolidation happens, and it's also important for your overall well being. Tips to improve your sleep quality: make sleep a priority. If you sleep for about 40 minutes during the day, when you take a nap, make sure it's about 40 minutes, because then you don't go into REM yet, that's deep sleep. So you won't feel as fuzzy when you wake up. Make sure you're sleeping in a cool, quiet, and dark room. Avoid eating late or drinking caffeinated beverages before bedtime. Wind down an hour before bed. That's where you shut down the TV, your phone, and then exercising for 30 minutes a day and improving your diet. If you are struggling with sleep despite following these tips, it may be a sign of an underlying issue, and please seek medical advice. And there's an importance in understanding your own health and well-being, particularly in a stressful environment all the time, especially like your matric year. So reach out to a support system, Learn coping strategies from others, utilize your school resources, and reflect on your past experience to better manage future situations. The overall goal is to increase self-efficacy and resilience during difficult times. And if you start now, the better it's going to be in your future. Right, so in conclusion, please remember that exam preparation is not a one size fits all approach. Recognize and understand your unique learning style in order to tailor your study methods. Make sure you manage your time effectively and create a study schedule to prioritize your exam tasks. Make sure to maintain a positive mindset, stay motivated, confident, and believe in your abilities. And I'm going to reiterate this again, that it's not only about achieving academically. Take care of your physical and mental health, get enough sleep, eat well, exercise, and practice self care. Right. And that's all from my side. I'm going to hand over to Ziyanda now.
Good morning, everyone. As introduced, I am Ziyanda Khumalo, and I'll just be discussing the elements of storing information and accountability during your studies. If there's one thing I just want you to let sink in just before we actually kick off into the information, remember this. Memory is like a child that's walking along the seashore. So you can never tell what small pebble that child will pick up and store amongst all the things that they've treasured. So if anything, think of how, if you've ever been to the beach, I know as kids we loved collecting seashells. So think of something like that. That memory means you're collecting those seashells and you're able to store them in a very intimate place or a very private place to you, but the memory within why you have that specific seashell always stays with you. All right, so when we think of storing information, we think of long-term memory, specifically in our study. So we're going to consider long-term memory. So these are a few tips and tricks in order for you to be able to effectively store information. And the first one is using spaced repetition. So there are students or learners who will say, I prefer to repeat the information or I prefer writing it out because if I'm able to see it as many times and recite it as many times, then I'm able to remember it. This specific technique allows you to gradually keep memory of things. First time you see it, to the second time you see it, to the third time you see it. So that is most popularly the technique that students do use. Then another big one is creating links. So for me, for example, when I study, I prefer either making songs with specific sections that I need to study, or creating a link where I'm taking whatever I'm studying and I'm putting it into reality, so that each time I need to think of that thing or I just hear the topic, I'm able to say, oh yes, I associated this with 1, 2, 3, so I know that it is 1, 2, 3. So creating links helps quite a lot because then you're able to align whatever it is you're studying with however that you'll remember it, and it tends to work a lot better. Then we've got chunking, and that is basically breaking down large amounts of information into very small, manageable chunks. And this is one thing that learners do struggle with because the day before we're cramming and we want to try and get everything. That's too much information for you to try and squeeze into your brain and remember the next morning. So this is why we always say prepare before the time, practice before the time. This is so that the information you consume it bit by bit in smaller chunks. All right. So normally students would switch to the two-page method, the two-page study method, where you take an A4 paper and you just fold it in half and you write all the most important notes on those pages rather than just writing the long sentences that you need to try and remember. So chunking it down does help as well. Then we have active learning. And this is where you actually allow yourself to engage with the information. So whether it's you saying, I have this particular topic, and because I want to remember it, I want to actively engage with it. So I'm gonna talk to my mom while she's cooking in the kitchen so that we can have a conversation about it. This is also you remembering all the important notes that you need to know for that specific topic. If you actually encourage having conversations over the topic, encourage as if you're teaching it to someone else, that also helps you to actively engage with that topic. Then we've got relating to real life situations. This one in creating links is almost similar, but this is when you specifically use the topic in real life so that you remember it according to real life situations. Then if there's one thing in terms of storing information, practice really does make perfect. You won't get it from the get-go. It won't make sense from the get-go, but allow yourself to break down information and remember it the way that you feel works for you. Don't copy and paste every other learner's method, right? Then another thing is getting sufficient sleep. This is actually very important in studying or in storing information. If you're able to get enough sleep, then that allows for you to prioritize all the things that you do need to remember. So please get enough sleep. The cramming the night before, it does not always work in your favor. Then, in terms of accountability, the one thing that you need to note is that it's very easy to dodge your responsibilities, but you can never at any point dodge the consequences that come from being a person who dodges their responsibilities. At the end of the day, your responsibilities will always fall onto you. So whether or not you study, that is your responsibility. How you study, that is your responsibility. And you need to be able to say, I am accountable for my studies. Okay, moving right along. So some ways to take accountability during your studies. We're gonna go into them in depth, but just so you have somewhat of a gist of the smaller scope of it, because remember, taking information in small pieces, we are just going to break into setting goals, creating a study plan, being consistent, taking ownership of your learning, sourcing a study buddy, monitoring your progress, staying motivated, practicing self-discipline, and reflecting and learning from mistakes. Right. All right. So if we go into them in depth, the biggest thing in terms of taking accountability is because you need to take the responsibility for all the things that you have or all the things that you need to ensure that you've studied or that you've allocated time for. The best and the first way is setting clear goals. Please do not reach for the stars as yet. Make your goals very practical and make them very achievable. Then ensure that in those goals, you've created a study plan that works for you. I said it a few minutes ago, and I said, if anything, don't copy and paste methods that a friend or a classmate is using. Please make sure that you create a study plan that works for you, with times that works for you, with a routine and habits that work for you. Then another big thing is being consistent. You can't wake up one day and say, okay, today I'm going to study. And the next day you say, outside of resting, the next day you wake up and you say, today, no, I actually don't feel like it. And the next day you do exactly the same thing. There's no consistency. So also with how we store information, you need to be consistent. So which means your accountability needs to remain very consistent in order for you to know that you're going according to your progress, the goals that you've set, the plan that you've created. Then taking ownership of your learning. With being accountable, it means you need to know that as much as mom and dad are very supportive, as much as mom and dad will ensure that studies are paid, will ensure that you're going to school, you're being dropped off, you're being picked up, whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, the studies are yours. So you need to take accountability for that. You need to take ownership of your own learning. Create it and redesign it as much as you possibly need to, but remember that it is your learning. Then sourcing a study buddy. This is a big one for students who prefer creating links, who prefer breaking down information. This allows you to say, perhaps maths is a bit tricky and I don't want to practice it alone. Get a study buddy, get someone who you know is good in maths. Perhaps you're good in physics, for example, and you can assist that particular study buddy with physics. But get someone you're able to relate with at the time, and someone you're able to say, okay, we're actually doing this. You're able to say, I'm struggling and I'm stressed and I'm panicking. Because they're on the same mindset, it helps a lot with reinventing what this entire process looks like for you. And remember, in getting a study buddy or sourcing a study buddy, it doesn't mean the accountability becomes theirs. It's still yours, but this is a step in helping you remain accountable. Then monitoring your progress is also a big thing. Please celebrate yourself on the smallest of things that you reach in this process. If your goal was to wake up every morning at 5 a.m. and in the first week you do it, celebrate yourself. A little ice cream wouldn't hurt anyone. Monitor your progress according to the goals you've set, according to the study plan that you've created. And in monitoring your process, stay as motivated as you possibly can. If you need to take a break sometimes to just collect all the thoughts, collect all the fear, all the worry, do that so that when you're telling yourself that I'm doing this, you're able to fully step into the accountability of I'm doing this and I'm motivated to do so. Then practicing self-discipline. This is a very, very big one. Remember that it's your learning, it's your studies. So mom and dad and your guardian, they'll only wake you up and say study on certain days. You need to be able to say, I'm focused, I'm taking responsibility, I will ensure that I have discipline, I'll ensure that my routine is up to date, that my goals are up to date, that I'm very consistent. You need to have self-discipline, right? Then always allow yourself to reflect and learn from your mistakes. That is a very, very big one. Please do not sit practicing and beat yourself up over it. You need to be able to say, okay, I got it incorrectly. Why? Perhaps your formula was, you learn from your mistakes in this journey, and that's why you need to pace yourself, right? So those are some of the ways just to stay accountable within your studies. Perfect. Then just a few reminders. If you want something in your life you've never had, you'll have to do something that you've never done. If anything, always be open to stepping outside of your own box. Always be open to being done. Perhaps you're the first learner in your family to actually fully sit and be in matric and complete matric and say, I'm doing this. Stay in that. That's a very huge step. It's a very different step. But for you to say, I want to do something, is you having to do something as well. So do something that shocks your system every now and then. Trust me, you will thank yourself. Then challenges are what make life interesting. This is one to remember. And overcoming them is what makes life meaningful. This is important for you to know that if it's easy, then possibly something might be a tad bit wrong. Most of the time, things in life will come to challenge you. It keeps us on our toes, but it also makes life very in your studies as a challenge. Think of it as a part where you can say, after you finish, you can say, actually, I did that. I overcome that challenge. I stepped into it. And it was a very interesting phase of my life, because trust me, you will remember it even in your last days of your degree, even in towards your masters. You will remember that at some point, matric, it showed me flames. It definitely made me shake a bit, but I overcame it and I did the best that I could. Then you are more capable than you know. Please always keep that in mind. This is why you need to allow yourself to be open to challenges. Sometimes you will surprise yourself, you will shock yourself. You told yourself, I'll get 60 for maths. As long as I've passed, it's okay. And here you are getting a distinction in mathematics. So know that you are very, very capable. Sometimes even more than you allow, even more than you've known. And don't let don't be the same, be better. That's a very, very big one. If there is one thing, this process or this time in your life is sometimes unsettling because you're in between. I need to study. You're in between. I need to apply for varsity. You're in between. My grades need to be good for my applications. And that becomes your main focus. If anything, allow yourself to adapt in that. But even if you've adapted, even if you've created a specific routine or you've built certain habits, always ensure that you do it 150%, not just 100. Never hit the bare minimum. You always go above. So be better as much as you possibly can. Again, thank yourself. Otherwise, that is it from me. I wish you guys all the best during this very, very, very interesting year. Sometimes, or for some, a very challenging year. But trust me, you've got this. Remember, you're more capable than you know. Otherwise, that is it from me, and I'm gonna hand over to Elizabeth to please take us through the next section.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you still have some energy left for me. Thank you so much to Ziyanda and Bianca for giving you some practical insights and study hacks, and also looking into what is needed in terms of body fuel, mindfulness, and also just some day-to-day hacks on taking better care of yourself. So my portion for today will reflect inwards. It will specifically focus on developing a growth mindset. So we will discuss how to develop a growth mindset, what a growth mindset looks like, but also looking at resiliency and mindfulness. If you don't know what this is yet, don't be concerned. I'm going to take you through everything step by step. And please, if you have some questions, pop it into the Q&A box. I'd be more than happy to answer any. So first, we're going to start with a growth mindset and mindset health. So a mindset is a set of assumptions or beliefs that you hold about your life or yourself or others, and it impacts how you perceive yourself, how you perceive the world around you. So whether you are aware of it or not, your mindset influences your behaviors and your choices. I am a firm believer in the cognitive behavioral approach, which basically says how you think will affect how you feel, will affect how you react. And it's not a linear process, it is circular. So how you feel will also affect how you react and how you think. So starting with how you think and having a positive and reflective mindset, also a critical mindset, is going to help you a lot. So your mindset can liberate you. It can help you take risks. It can help you reach your full potential, or it can limit you in ways that you stay the same as you currently are. It makes you fearful of taking risks, or it actually impacts you negatively in a way that you perceive that you don't have the skills or the courage or the knowledge to actually attempt an endeavor. So a mindset is just a set of beliefs. They are powerful beliefs, but they are still something in your mind and something that you can change. And this is a quote by Carol Dweck. So people with a growth mindset believe that their most basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. This mindset differs significantly from a fixed mindset, which dictates that your ability is largely predetermined and unchangeable. So a fixed mindset believes that you are either good at something or you're not good at something. And it's based on inherent talents and how you were born, just the way that you are. So these are two distinct mindsets, and they run on a continuum. So sometimes you might have a developmental mindset, and sometimes you might have a fixed mindset, depending on the situation. However, the hallmark of a growth mindset is determined by your ability to say that whatever the skill or the knowledge is, I can develop it, I can grow it, I can cultivate it, whether it's intelligence, whether it's a skill base, whether it's sports, music, whatever. A growth mindset says that I can develop most abilities in my life if I really work hard at it and if I'm really dedicated to the cause. So a fixed mindset, when we look in terms of intelligence, it will avoid difficult challenges. It will say that it's too hard, I can't do this. It will expect the reward without the effort. So you would like to have your matric certificate, but it's too much work to actually do it. And it will ignore feedback, or it will see feedback as criticism. I'm not a big believer in the word of criticism. I don't really like it. I like the word feedback, but criticism is still a form of feedback where you can grow and you can develop, and everything that we receive from others, we can take and internalize, and we can make it part of how we improve ourselves and our abilities. So someone with a fixed mindset might look at criticism or feedback in a negative way and see it as judgment, versus someone with growth mindset will see it as an opportunity for growth. So people with fixed mindset are also threatened by the success of others. So you constantly weigh yourself up against other people, and you feel threatened or intimidated by their success. And this is not to say that this makes you a bad person, but it does limit your capacity. It does limit your capabilities. Whereas a growth mindset gives you the opportunity to grow and develop and really come into your own and feel comfortable in your own skin and abilities as well. So when we look at intelligence from a growth mindset perspective, people with a growth mindset will embrace challenges. They will see opportunities as an opportunity to train their brain. And effort is a path to mastery. So even if you don't know something yet, even if you don't have the ability, the skill, or the knowledge, you see the practice as your pathway to success. Then learning from feedback, as we discussed, and they are also inspired by the success of others. So they see them as mentors, as coaches, as inspirations, as teachers, as role models. So that, in a nutshell, is the differentiation between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. Then, how to cultivate a growth mindset. So now we understand the importance of a growth mindset. The three most important things when we look at a growth mindset would be intention, attention, and attitude. So intention would be the active choice you make to cultivate that awareness. So you make an active choice to grow your mindset. Attention is being present in the moment, being present of the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations, and also the cognitive processes happening. And that is a process called mindfulness, which I'll discuss with you in a moment. And then lastly, it is attitude. So having a positive attitude makes the world of difference. So being kind, even though you might not be feeling well or wonderful the day, and you might not even like the person that you're communicating with, but being kind, being courteous, and being non-judgmental is going to make a world of difference. Then we also have some skills that you can cultivate, which is making time. And first of all, making time for healthy habits. So that should happen at least 30 minutes during your day and 10 minutes at night. Healthy habits include eating balanced meals, having enough time for rest and relaxation, sleeping enough. It will also mean brushing your teeth, making your bed, having a tidy and livable space. So cultivating those healthy habits will help you to get into a mindset where you can grow and you can develop, but it will also make you feel good about yourself. Then taking care of yourself. So if you have 30 to 40 minutes in your day for healthy habits, you should have an additional 30 minutes at least during the day where you take care of yourself. So that is scheduling some me time, some self-care time, whether it's taking a relaxing bath, having an uninterrupted meal, reading a book, playing a game, listening to music, watching a podcast, a series, Netflix, whatever it is, but that is your opportunity to put back to fill your cup a little bit. And then finding ways of motivation to combat burnout. And there are different ways where you can build motivation. You can start a dream board, a vision board of the things you would like to achieve and things you would like to do. And start with short-term goals that lead into your long-term goals. So if you know you want to study and you have a specific career in mind, or you have an ambacht in mind, or whatever your dreams are, to travel the world, start with smaller, breakable, little chewable bits that you can start achieving now in building towards your bigger goals, because that will keep you motivated. And then have that vision board there to remind you, or make notes, or have someone that is sort of a motivation buddy to remind you of your goals, any way that works for you. Then be aware of your mindset. So this is going to take you back to mindfulness. And this is something that I'm going to discuss with you in a minute. This is the most important skill that I would like to leave with you today, is to be aware of yourself, how you are thinking, how you are feeling, how are you responding, what is happening in your surroundings in terms of your family, your friends, the community at large, and then also what is happening in your spaces at school, at work, wherever. So be aware of what is happening, be aware of negative talk, be aware of your stress levels, and be aware of your circumstances. Then drink lots of water, right? We know we say that a lot, and it's an old person saying, but it really does help. It helps for circulation, it helps for your body health, and it also affects your cognitive ability. So drinking lots of water has lots of benefits for your skin, your brain, your body, everything. And then practice sleep hygiene. Ziyanda, Bianca, they both touched on sleep hygiene, and this is something that we cannot overstate. So sleep hygiene basically says that look at healthy habits, hygienic habits, when you are sleeping. Preferably don't be playing on your phone for, let's say, 60 to 30 minutes before you go to bed. Don't have any electronics on in the room while you are sleeping. Have some really nice dark out or dark curtains, blackout or dark curtains, to avoid additional light coming into your room when you're sleeping at night. Have healthy habits. So try and sleep at this more or less the same time each night, and waking up at more or less the same time each day. And the reason for this is your brain makes associations, right? If you're in bed every night and you're playing on your phone just before you go to bed, you watching TikToks, you are on YouTube, you are listening to a podcast, you are on Facebook, your brain starts to associate what you are doing with your bed. So instinctively, and I know that most of us will be able to relate to that, you get into bed and instinctively you reach for your phone and you wonder, but I wonder why. I wasn't thinking of speaking to someone. I wasn't actively thinking of doing anything on my phone, but it's the way that your brain has been programmed. Whereas if you put your phone to the side, half an hour to 60 minutes before, your brain starts to associate your bed with sleep. So even if you're not sleepy and you get into bed, your brain will automatically tell you that it's time to sleep, and you will start to feel fatigued and you will drift off to a normal sleep. This is a process that doesn't happen over one day. Please continue to practice it. Any healthy habit at least takes 2 to 3 weeks to properly form in the brain and build new pathways. So it's something you have to be consistent in. If you're a difficult sleeper like me, it will take some time, but I promise you that it will bear fruit. There's definite benefits to sleeping properly. And then engage in moderate exercise. When we say moderate exercise, we know that we have our gym bunnies, we know that we have our gym oaks, and that's wonderful. But we also have people like me that don't necessarily feel like they have enough time or energy to rigorously gym every day. But what you can do is engage in moderate exercise, whether that's 10 minutes of walking briskly, running, skipping, enjoying some activities with your pets, but having physical activity for 10 minutes each day. It helps for circulation, it helps for blood flow, it boosts your morale, your emotions, and it's very good for your bodily health as well. Then create and maintain a functional support network. It's very important that you have people that support you in your life. Some of us are very extroverted and we have communication and relationships with multiple people, and that's great. Others are more introverted and they have limited amounts of relationships in their lives, and that's perfectly fine as well. So it's not about quantity, it's about quality. Even if it's one good friend or one family member that you know you can rely on and turn to for support and encouragement, that really cares and has your well-being at heart. The most important thing out of all these tips and tricks is your mindset. Being positive and having a positive expectation and a positive outlook. Then, so 5 ways to improve, and these are some of the things we've already discussed, but just to highlight them again, 5 ways to improve your mental and emotional well-being is to focus on your positive emotions, right? Search for that appreciation and happiness in each day. And if it's something you're struggling with, do it as an activity in your day. Make it part of your self-care routine. You can have a little gratitude box, make yourself a box, get yourself little sticky notes or piece of papers, different colors, decorate it however you want. And each day, put something in the box, something on a note that you are appreciative of. If it's not that, look yourself in the mirror and give yourself some words of affirmation, positive things about yourself, in your day, about your circumstances. It's very easy for us to reflect on the negative things, but it's extremely important that you keep a positive mindset, right? Try to engage in mindfulness when you're completing your tasks. So attempt to give your full attention. And that's something I'm going to give you a quick guide on how to do. So if you feel like your attention is being diverted away from what you're doing, and we do this all day, every day, you might be sitting in this meeting wondering, what am I going to eat after this webinar? What am I going to do? What are my friends up to? Divert your attention back. That is the practice of mindfulness. Then build and maintain genuine and supportive relationships. So practice kindness with everyone you interact with, because that is a way in which people would want to engage with you again. And then find a sense of meaning in your life, whether it's through your hobbies, your goals, your family. Why are you doing this? What do you want to achieve? Where do you want to be? What is your purpose? And if you're still finding that out, great. Start to make yourself a list. Include that on your vision board, but find that purpose, that meaning that's going to get you through the rough and tough days when you're tired, you're exhausted emotionally and physically, and you just need that little bit of inspiration and that boost. It can also be spirituality for those of you who are spiritual. And then allow yourself a sense of accomplishment and pride when reaching goals, the small ones and the big ones, right? Don't just celebrate when you get your matric certificate. Celebrate for each milestone. I did a great job on this assignment, or I finished this assignment and I was so overwhelmed. I was so stressed. I was so tired. I actually got to study. I actually went to school, and I felt really awful about it this morning. Celebrate each and every milestone, big and small, because that's going to give you the motivation to continue in the future. Then building resilience. Your growth mindset, mindfulness, resilience, they're not separate entities. They're all part and parcel of the same thing. So being aware that failure is not the end of the world, but another chance to try and do better is what resilience is all about, right? It's being able to fail or receive or be in a crisis or be in a traumatic experience, and then being able to rise above it, work through it. And it doesn't mean that you have to do it immediately. It is a skill that you grow and you cultivate. So it's like building a muscle, right? You increase your resiliency through intentionally practicing it constantly. So the core components of resiliency would be connection, healthy thinking, and meaning can empower you to withstand, learning from difficult or traumatic experience. So this is what we call post-traumatic growth as well. When you're in a crisis, or you have received traumatic news, or you're undergoing a traumatic experience, and you work through it and you navigate that process, our brain then focuses and it builds new pathways and it builds new strengths. So it builds resiliency, and that is post-traumatic growth. So you actually do develop and grow from those experiences, even if they are uncomfortable. So the 5 ways of building your resiliency is, again, thinking positively, looking after yourself, utilizing your supportive network, and identifying and working towards your set goals, and then seeking assistance. It's so important to ask for help when you don't know what you are doing, or you have limited knowledge or skills on something, or you just need some support. And we all do it. Some of us, it's difficult to ask for assistance, but it is also a practice. The more you do it, the better it's going to become. And you're going to realize that people don't see you in a lesser light because you ask for assistance. It's actually a great trait. It networks with other people, it builds bonds, and it strengthens your own knowledge and skills. Then resilient people are aware of their situations, their emotional reactions, and the behaviors around them. Again, mindfulness. So it not only helps you with difficult circumstances, but it empowers you to improve your own life, but also those of others around you. So then we get to the 7 C's of resiliency. So if you don't remember all the mumbo jumbo we just discussed, try and remember the 7 C's, or go back and reflect on the 7 C's. So the first one would be competence. So your ability to handle situations effectively. And this is something you practice. Confidence, believing in your personal capabilities. Connection, creating that sense of belonging within yourself, your higher power, if you have one, but also with your environment, with the people around you. Then character, having a solid set of morals and values. We all differ in our morals and values, but understanding your own ones and how they fit into societal norms and values is going to benefit you greatly. Contribution, so your ability to make a difference, whether it's big, small, if it's a group project, being involved, participating, doing your part. The same goes for in your home spaces. If you live with others and you have a role to play, a duty to perform, doing that will give you a sense of purpose, and it will contribute as well. Then coping, so your ability to handle stress, and that can be done through mindfulness, but also relaxation, self-care, and a variety of other ways, which some of them we've given you already. And then control, knowing and the ability to affect your outcome. So taking back the control, saying, you know what, it's not for others to decide how, where, and what I can do. It is for me. I might need support, I might need assistance, but it is still within my own capacity. Okay, so that's accountability. And then we get to mindfulness. And mindfulness might seem like an abstract term for some of you, but it might be something that others have engaged in rigorously, and that's great. But basically, in a nutshell, what mindfulness, it is a method of focusing on being intensely aware of what you're sensing and feeling in the moment without interpretation or judgment. You might take notice and be aware of your mind, your body, and surroundings. So that's a very nice way of saying it is just you being aware. It's awareness. That's all it is. I know what's happening inside my mind. I know what's happening with others, and I know what's happening around me in my space. And I'm not necessarily interpreting what it means, and I'm not judging, but I know what is happening. So the basics, if you want to start and practice some mindfulness, is set aside some time, observe what is happening in your own mind and also in your space. Let the judgments roll by. So even if you do make unconscious judgments, just have them roll by, but focus your energy back to what is happening in your moment. And then be kind to your wandering mind. So don't be unkind and tell yourself, yeah, I can't focus. It's not within me. It's not a skill I can cultivate. Just be aware that it is something that takes practice and it takes patience as well. And then it helps you manage stress to cope better with serious illness or crisis. And it reduces anxiety and depression. So even if you don't have anxiety or depression, you might have stress and times of sadness. This is a method to help you as well. And it is linked to changes in your brain. So it can increase activity in regions that control stress regulation and decrease activity in regions that control your brain stress alarm system, like the amygdala. So practicing mindfulness improves your mood in a nutshell. it decreases your stress, and it helps you focus. So some of the mindfulness exercises, I'm not going to take you through every single one because they do take a little bit of time, but you can practice these at home, and I would advise that you Google them as well. So some of these are also relaxation exercises. So mindfulness can help you relax as well. It's not necessarily a relaxation exercise, but you can combine them, but it is also a method of focus. So some of these techniques include a body scan. A body scan is where you are going to listen to a script where someone guides you through basically from the crown until the tippy toe, how to focus on different portions of your body, your breathing, how you're thinking, how you're feeling, how your body is reacting. It helps to stimulate calmness, but it also helps you to focus your energy. Gratitude exercises. So we've discussed some of those ones, but being mindful of having a positive mindset and gratitude, right? And that's going to cultivate a positive mindset. So look into those ones. Intention setting exercises. So it's in the name. You can also go and you can Google some of them, but it's basically exercises that focuses on your goals and your goal setting. Then mindful meditation. So that's a meditation technique. There will also be a script. There's many scripts that you can find online, and you can listen to a script to teach you on how to meditate. Introspection. So that's where you look inward and you reflect on your own thoughts, emotions, feelings, what is happening, what you're taking from your external spaces and internalizing. Breathing exercises, which there are many of. I'm going to teach you two today, and then mindful listening, which is a great skill, because oftentimes what we do with active listening or with listening in general is we hear what people are saying, but we're not listening. We're thinking about other things. We're thinking about how we can respond, how we can sound smart, how we can engage, but we're not actually listening. So mindful listening is a great tool. Then mindful eating, which sounds silly, but oftentimes we sit in front of a TV, we sit in front of our textbooks, we engage with other people, and we don't focus. So our brain isn't processing the enjoyment of the meal. It isn't processing that we are necessarily full. It isn't processing the experience. Mindful eating focuses on the sensations. How does my food look? How does it smell? How does it taste? The texture, the feeling. And then your brain is able to internalize all of those sensations and also send messages through to other parts of your brain that you are happy, satisfied, and full. And then compassion. Compassion is a great thing. So that's where we talked about how you speak with others, but it also relates to compassion for yourself, being kind towards yourself. And then the 5 senses exercise, which is one of my favorites. These are not the only ones, but these are the ones that I've highlighted for today. And I'm going to quickly run you through 2 of them, right? So the first one would be, you can sit wherever you are. Remember that your cameras are off, and so are your mics, so no one can see you. But I'm going to quickly teach you 2 breathing exercises and then take you through the 5 senses exercise. These are some of the easiest techniques that you can utilize when you feel stressed, overwhelmed, or just really unfocused. So the first one is a really quick breathing exercise. It's a way to calm your central nervous system immediately, and it's a way that we utilize, especially when you're feeling very overwhelmed. So babies are actually our teachers in this regard. So when babies cry, and little ones, toddlers, they often have this hiccuping sensation when they have stopped crying or are nearing the end of their crying session. It's because their bodies cannot emotionally regulate by themselves. They haven't really evolved emotional intelligence yet. So what they do is their bodies tell them how to regulate. And it's through this hiccuping sensation that they sort of calm their central nervous system. So it often sounds like a hiccup. It's actually a deep breathing technique, and it's something I'm going to teach you now. It sounds weird and it feels weird the first time you practice it, but it gets better as you go along. So basically it's 3 or 2 quick breaths in, because 3 might be too much, and then just an exhale. So you can do it through your nose, which is what we usually request, or you can do it through your mouth if you struggle to breathe through your nose. But basically, I'm going to emulate it, and then we're going to give it a practice. So it's 2 quick breaths in, 1 breath out, and you do it about 3 times. Immediately, if you take nice deep breaths in and you exhale nice and deeply, you should start feeling calmer immediately. So we're going to do it again in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so a bit weird, a bit strange the first time you do it, but I promise you it's a technique that does work, especially if you're going to do a presentation, you have to do a praatjie at school. This is going to help you with public speaking. It's going to help you with exam nerves. It's going to help you with some of the jitters if you had to go for an interview or just when you're overwhelmed. The other deep breathing technique I'm going to teach you today is one that's more formally used in therapeutic spaces, but also one that you might be familiar with. So we're going to take 4 breaths in. We're going to keep it for 4 seconds, and we're going to 4-second breaths in, keep it for 4 seconds, and then exhale for 4. So you're going to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. And when we do this, I want you to imagine either that you're inflating a balloon when you're breathing in, and deflating the balloon when you're breathing out. So you can keep your hand on your stomach or your diaphragm, or you can imagine sucking through a straw, because that's going to help you take really nice deep breaths. But I like the balloon one. The choice is yours. So it's going to be in through your nose, hold for 4, out through your mouth. In through your nose, hold, out through your mouth. In, hold, out. In, hold, out. In, hold, out. You can continue doing this for as long as you like. The ideal is that you practice it in the beginning for at least 5 minutes, and that you're intentional about it. After a while, if this is a technique that works for you, you'll see that it becomes a daily activity. You no longer need to focus on it. You don't need it to be scripted. You do it while driving, while walking, while talking, before presenting. It becomes natural things. And it doesn't always have to be as audible as it is now. That was for me demonstrating it. So it should help with releasing oxytocin. Basically, in a nutshell, it is oxygen that you send through to your brain. Your brain gets all the oxygen. It releases some of the stress. It helps you to focus. And then the 5 senses is a great exercise, mindfulness exercise that goes along with this relaxation exercise, the deep breathing. And it brings you back to what is happening in your present moment, because oftentimes we're overwhelmed with environmental noise, stress, whatever it is, and this focuses you back. So if you need to study, but you can't focus because there's so much going on, then the 5 senses will bring you back to what you're doing. So 5 senses basically is just what it says. It's going to focus on your senses. And you're going to do this exercise with me now. So you're going to look around your room while you're now nice and calm, and you're going to find me 5 things that you can see. You don't have to type anything, just identify 5 things that you can see. So for example, for me, it's my cat, it's the window, it's the couch cushion, it's the TV, and it's a plate that has not been cleared away. Then 4 things that you can hear in your space. Find 4 things. So for me, it's the electronic hum, it's my own voice, it's the sound of the environmental noise if someone's dog is barking a few blocks or a few doors down. It's the wind, and it's the birds. Then find me 3 things that you can feel. And with feeling, we talk about touch sensation. We talk about what you can feel by sitting down, what you feel through your hands, but it's everything. Your skin feels, your body feels, your hair feels. So I can feel the soft couch underneath my legs. I can feel my toes wiggling, and I can feel my hand on my computer. And find me 2 things that you can smell. And everything has a smell. Even if there is not a strong smell in your environment, remember, even air has a smell. So focus on what sort of sensory inputs you're getting. So I can smell perfume and I can smell fresh air. And then one thing you can taste, right? And again, everything has a taste, even your own saliva. Don't let that gross you out. So for me, I can taste the cool drink that I just drank. Okay. So that is your 5 senses. If you forget it, go back to Google, look at this recording again, but it basically focuses on using all your senses to help you to refocus. By the time you are done with identifying these things, you should be in tune with your surroundings and what is happening at your present moment. Okay. So that's it for the mindfulness in action. Then lastly, just to wrap it up, I know you guys are probably overwhelmed with a lot of information. And so 6 healthy living tips. And I think Bianca, Ziyanda, and we all touched on the same things. These are things you can carry with you and start to internalize where you think about them actively and you start engaging with them. And remember, it's a practice and it's not a sprint. I had a quote that I missed on one of my slides, but it basically said, if you can run, do so. If you can't, then jog. If you can't, then walk. And if you can't walk, then crawl, but keep moving. And it was nicer said in the quote, but it's basically a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. And that just says that keep moving, even if it's difficult, but have the intention to keep developing and keep growing and keep on hustling, right? So 1, eat nutritious food and balance portions. Get enough rest and relaxation, exercise moderately and regularly, avoid bad habits, smoking, drinking, too much internet, whatever it is, you will know if you have some of those bad habits. Drink at least a minimum of 2 liters of water, right? It sounds like a lot. Get you one of those little bottles that has the measurements, or make your own with a Cokie. But it's very possible. Remind yourself at different intervals of the day to drink water, and then manage your stress and really co-create or create for yourself a positive way of thinking, a positive frame of reference. Okay. Thank you all so much for joining us today, for joining me and listening to my talk and engaging in the activity. I wish you all of the best for this year and with your future endeavors. Thank you to my co-hosts, and I'm handing over again to Danica. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much to our speakers. This was a really lovely and informative session. Just a reminder, if you do have any questions, please do feel free to pop them in the Q&A box. But in the meantime, Bianca, if you could please join me on screen. I have a question for you. Thanks, Bianca.
Yes.
How do you manage studying if you have a short attention span? Could you please, in your own opinion, give us all of?
All right. So the fact of the matter is that our attention spans are decreasing because of social media and all these things that we are exposed to on a daily basis. So it actually works in our advantage if we use the Pomodoro technique, where we set time limits to our chunks of studying. But how we utilize it is important. So if you have problems with attention span, it just means that you are going to set shorter time limits. So for example, you would not necessarily study for 40 minutes, you would study for 25 minutes and then have your break interval. So the other thing is that you are used to being interrupted, so you're going to anticipate interruption, and if that interruption does not come, that's when the person gets distracted. So make sure that you make use of interruptions within your studying technique. And I know it sounds contradictory, but like I said, if that interruption doesn't come, that's when your mind starts to wander, you start daydreaming and things like that. So make sure that you make space for that interruption to occur. Another nice way of studying is people who are prone to shorter attention spans enjoy interactive learning. So make use of quizzes to perhaps revise your work, things like Kahoot, that's online, perhaps some e-learning platforms. Perhaps you could find some YouTube videos that relate to the content that you're busy with. So anything that stimulates the mind in a way that's interactive works usually for people who have shorter attention spans. But I always say use it to your advantage. It's not to say that you're doomed because you have a shorter attention span. And like I said, we are all busy going towards a way where we do have shorter attention spans. I hope that answers your questions, Danica.
Thank you so much, Bianca. Okay, then I have a question here for Ziyanda. If you could please join me on screen. Ziyanda, in your opinion, do you have a couple of tips for creating boundaries with your family, especially if they are your support structure during this exam period?
Hi, Danica. Thanks for the question. I definitely do. The first one would be being very open in terms of the communication that you have with your parent. But in being open, when I say be open, it means being very clear. So if at any point you feel pressured, you feel stressed, perhaps their support is making you a bit anxious, be very open in communicating that. This does not mean fight. It does not mean disrespect at any point, but it just means being able to say, actually, I'm struggling a bit and I'm struggling because of this, and this. That is the first way. Be open and be willing to communicate as clear as possible. And the second thing, this is especially for students who have more stricter parents, which I did myself as well when I was back in high school. The first thing that you need to keep in mind for that one is always allow yourself to be very gentle about your approach, right? And what that basically means is, I know for a student who heard the first point, they would have been like, but it's going to be difficult to communicate or to just bring that topic up. When I say gentle with your approach, most of the times parents do what they know. Most of the times they do what they think is best. So you need to be able to say, hey mom, hey dad, I'm struggling a bit, and this is why. Don't come with aggression. Don't come with a little bit of irritation or frustration or anger. Even though you're feeling that, be very gentle with your approach. They will understand you a lot more if you're gentle with how you approach it, how you communicate it. I think those would be the best way, but please refrain from completely trying to block a parent out. That, trust me, it will not work. Don't block your parent out or avoid it or just ignore it. It does not work. Eventually, when push comes to shove and it's actually time for final exams, you'll feel even more pressure because you hadn't communicated it before or put a conversation on the table before. But yeah.
Thank you so much, Ziyanda. And I think that everybody can relate to that a little bit. We always have a bit of annoyance or a bit of frustration running around, especially in these types of situations. Thank you, Ziyanda. I have a question for Elizabeth. If you can please join me on screen. Right.
Hello.
So, I have a question regarding the growth mindset. So, what if we or young adults or matriculants struggle a little bit with self-esteem, and building a growth mindset is a little bit difficult for them? how would you, in your opinion, combat this situation to achieve building a growth mindset?
Wonderful. Thank you, Danica. Well, the first thing is, if it's something that goes more into anxiety, extreme anxiety, where you suffer from anxiety every day, or you feel like you have really severe or serious depression symptoms, I would seek a counseling advice or some professional guidance. I would go and speak to someone to see whether there isn't more support available. If it is a matter of just being shy and having lower self-esteem and not really knowing how to cultivate the mindset, I would take it back to a positive, framing things positively, and gratitude exercises. Oftentimes when we deal with emotions, it's very easy for us to really identify our anger triggers and to talk about anger. It's easy for us to tell others what makes us sad and what affects us negatively, and also what makes us stressed and anxious. But when I flip the switch and I usually ask people to tell me and relay to me what makes them happy or what they like about themselves, that's the biggest, most important thing. It oftentimes becomes more difficult for us to say what we like about ourselves and what we celebrate about ourselves. So if it's difficult to cultivate a growth mindset because there's a lack of self-esteem, I would take it back to positive ways of thinking, reframing the way that you think about yourselves, your own capabilities, your own skills, your own knowledge. And I would do that through structured exercises. One would be positive words of affirmation. So every morning and every night when you get up and just before you go to bed, you go to the mirror and you find, at least to start off with, 3 things that you like about yourself, that you celebrate about yourself, whether it's things that you noticed that day or it's generalized things. But these combat the negative beliefs, generalized beliefs that we hold about ourselves. And then also something like a gratitude box where you can reflect daily on something nice that happened during that day, something good that you did, or someone that had a positive impact on your day, and also how you had a positive impact on someone else's day. So cultivating a positive mindset goes back to those 3 main components. It's your intention, it's your attitude, and basically it's your commitment, right? So being aware and practicing it all the time, but then also cultivating that positive attitude and being very mindful of practicing it daily. So I would start that if it's self-esteem, start with some balanced practice exercises, but also seek support and seek help. And don't do this by yourself, especially if you don't know how.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was very enlightening. And I'm sure that if there is someone that is going through something similar, that these tips and tricks would really assist in this regard. Right. Okay. So we've come to the end of our live Q&A session. But if we did not answer your question, or if you'd like our team to contact you, please do leave your email address and query in the chat box, and our team will be in contact with you. Please do follow us on our various social media channels to stay up to date on our upcoming events, program launches, and updates, to see the recording of this webinar. Thank you once again to our wonderful, wonderful speakers and to our attendees for joining us this morning and giving up a little bit of your Saturday morning. We hope you have a wonderful day further. Thank you.